So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sai, who is going to walk through a demonstration of some of the maintenance tools, some of the administration tools, and to kind of show you what the end user experience looks like.
All right, great. Thanks, Trent. Hope you're able to see my screen here. In this demo, we will address two aspects of working with BPOS. The first one is how do end users work with BPOS? Since you have Exchange Online in the cloud, you have live meeting services, you have Office Communication and SharePoint in the cloud, I wanted to show you the user interface and how end users interact with these solutions. The second aspect is we will look at how administrators can work with the BPOS admin tools. So from an end user perspective, let's assume you are an administrator, you have created a user within your BPOS admin set. The end users can work with Exchange Online and Outlook. This is the software plus services model that Trent was talking about. It's really seamless to the end user. They work with Outlook, they work with Exchange Online just how they would do if you have an on-premise solution. So when you create a user, they'll get an email that looks very similar to what you see here. The first thing that the users have to do is go to the company portal, which is home.microsoftonline.com. So I have this open over here. This is the one-stop web portal for end users to go and access all of the services that are available within BPOS. So you can see here, since we have a BPOS license, and that includes Exchange, I have a link to email and calendar and the Outlook Web Access tool. I have a link to some SharePoint sites, and I also have links to start a live meeting session. So this is the web portal. Users can access this with their login name and password, even if they are not VPN'd into the corporate network. So the first thing is you go to the Downloads tab, and you need to download a single sign-on application. Again, the reason for this is because your identity is managed in two different places. So you have Active Directory, and then you have those usernames synchronized to the BPOS cloud. So if you want a one-click access to all of these applications, you will need to install the single sign-on application. So this is the single sign-on application that's running from my computer. As you can see here, all of the tools that I have access to on the website are also available within this app. Now, if I want to check email, of course, I can launch email from here. I can launch Outlook Web Access, create a live meeting session, as well as look at all of my SharePoint sites. So going back to email, most of the functionality that's available in an on-premise environment is available here as well. For example, I can go into my calendar. Let's say I want to pick up an appointment, hit the to option. I can see a global address list of all the users that are available in my Exchange environment that's hosted online, as well as my Active Directory environment. Again, directory synchronization is really the core piece that glues all of these things together. So when you run the directory synchronization tool, which we'll talk about in a little bit, all of the users from your Active Directory will be available for users to pick within their Exchange Online and Outlook environment. And you can also set up resources. So I can actually add rooms or conference rooms to the Exchange Online application, or you can set that up in AD and synchronize them to the cloud so that users can add them as resources as well. So that's really it from an Exchange Online perspective. So let me go back to the website to show some of the SharePoint features. So I'm here on the home page of the Online Services portal. SharePoint, of course, is very similar to what you see with MOS 2007. You can have multiple SharePoint site collections, and each one of those site collections have some policies around storage and security. Again, it's very similar to the MOS 2007 features that you are very familiar with. Trent has already addressed some of those limitations, so I'm not going to go into those details at this point. The last item, of course, is live meeting. Again, when you have a BPOS online suite, every user has access to create impromptu live meetings as well as schedule meetings and invite other users. So here is the live meeting console. You can schedule meetings for future use, or you can just do an impromptu meeting with a Meet Now option right here. Again, very similar to the existing live meeting tools, but the flexibility that you get here is you don't have a separate username and password to manage your live meeting access. If you have a BPOS license, everybody gets access to this. And of course, you are not limited just to buying the entire suite. You can also do a piecemeal solution where if you already have, let's say, an on-premise live meeting server and you're not interested in moving to a BPOS suite, you can just buy Exchange Online or you can just buy SharePoint Online. So those options are available as well. So from an end user perspective, we saw that it's a really seamless process. You use similar tools like Outlook to connect to Exchange Online. SharePoint is again very similar to what you have on-premise. So now we'll go ahead and jump into the administrator experience. So administrators also have a single point of contact for managing the entire BPOS suite. So you can get to this using the admin.microsoftonline.com web address, or if you go to microsoft.com/online, you have links here as well to sign into your online administration center. So as an administrator, the first thing that you would notice here, this is my administrator home screen, and the first thing that you notice here is help and support is something that's pervasive throughout the entire admin center. Microsoft really realizes that this is the first version of their software as a services cloud offering, and it has provided significant help resources for any tasks that you need to perform on the site. So once I log in here, I see a couple of tasks that I need to do. So the first one is adding domain to online services. What that means is if you own the domain, you can go and set it up within online services, and that helps when you set up email coexistence, which means you can have some mailboxes in your on-premise Exchange environment, and you can have the remaining mailboxes in the cloud, and online services is smart enough to figure out where to route the email once you set the coexistence within the online services portal. So you have the list of tasks that you need to do. You have some help information to get started here, and you can also create service requests to Microsoft. Again, contacting Microsoft is a really seamless process. You have some questions or something's not working for you, you can actually create service requests from here and send them to Microsoft, and you can track the progress of the case from just one location. So going back to the home screen, you can also see the status of your services. So I have Exchange Online and SharePoint Online here. You can expand these options to see the health of these online services, and if you have any questions, of course, you can create service requests from right here. So that's really the overview of the admin portal. Now, how do we manage users? In the second tab here, you have a user list. You have an overview of how many licenses that you have available and how many that you have assigned to users. So if I expand that option over here, I see that I have 250 licenses. I've assigned 5 of those. And since I'm using BPOS, I see a list of all of these services in my dashboard. Now, there are multiple ways you can create users. The first way is you already have an Active Directory environment, which means there is a directory synchronization tool that will take the user created in AD and create them automatically in BPOS. So that's the first option and the preferred option. Now the second option is you can create an individual user here within the user interface. So under the Actions section, I have a New User tab. So I can click on that, and this is where the multiple domains come into picture. So you can see here, I can pick a username. So for now, I'm going to pick a username like this. If you have multiple domains that you want to associate with Microsoft Online, you can associate those domains here. And I'm going to create the user, and you can set different properties. And of course, you have some of these features available that you can plug in. So once I hit next, it creates automatically a temporary password for that user, and it also provides some information on whether you want to enable this user account or not. So the third option is to assign a license and to choose a mailbox size. Now you can choose mailboxes from 256 meg, which is the option for deskless workers that Trent was talking about. If you remember, that was a Starbucks example where the baristas working in the stores were deskless workers. They get 256 megs of mailbox size, and you can go all the way up to 25 gigs. So I would choose 25 gigs here for this option, hit create. At that point, the solution will create the user account for me, and I have an option to send a notification to the end user that the account is actually ready for login. So I can see here the account has been created. There is a password. You can type in an email address, and that will send a notification as well. So I'm going to click Finish here and exit out of the screen. Now, when you have a lot of users, managing users is really an important task for administrators. So out of the box, you get different views. So I can see all administrators within the system. I can see disabled users, and I can also see users that are really not using their license. In some cases, you may just want to reassign the license to somebody else, right? So this is a great view for that. Now, if this is not something that's useful for you, you also have tools to create a new view. So I can create a new view. set up the different properties. For example, I just want to see all the accounts synchronized from my local AD environment. So you can create custom views and save it back, and that also provides you the flexibility to slice and dice this information. Now, if you have a set of users that you want to import into the system, you can also do it through a file. And Online Services does provide you a CSV file template. As long as you are conformant to that file template, you can actually import users from an Excel file as well. So we have looked at the home page. We have looked at managing users. Let's jump into the service settings screen. So here, this is where you would manage each of your individual services. So of course, I have BPOS, and I have 4 different tabs here to manage. So if I go into Exchange Online, I can see all the contacts. I can see distribution lists, save senders. Of course, you can create save senders based on IP. So if you want to trust this IP address, you can go ahead and set that up. Specific email addresses that you want to exclude from spam filtering, you can set that up here, or you can even do a complete filter based on the domains. And you can set up a blocked senders list as well, and the list of conference rooms that we talked about, that's available here as well. Now, most of these settings would come from your local AD environment, but there is also an option to add them individually over here. Now, this is one of the things that Trent talked about as well, that you don't get the flexibility to synchronize back to AD if you add a new conference room or a save center here within the BPOS user interface. Now, jumping into SharePoint Online, again, very similar management experience. You can create multiple site collections, and you can also administer the site, change the allocation storage, and you can set different administrators here. And if you click on site settings, again, I'm going to actually go back to the other site here. So let me click on the BPOS demonstration site. You go to site settings. It's the same MOS 2007 experience that you have with an on-premise solution. So you can go ahead and manage your different site settings from here. Live meeting, again, it's a very similar process. Administering live meeting does happen outside of this console. You can schedule meetings and set up preferences in the center that we showed as an end user. And for Office Communications Online, of course, you can enable or disable it. And if you have it enabled, then users can go and download the client from this page. So I'm here logged in as an end user. This is the home.microsoft online portal. So if I go to the Downloads tab, you can see here I have an option to download Office Communicator 2007. So that's basically a quick overview of the administration piece. Now, the most important online services function that you would probably do when you decide to roll this out is migration. So let me jump to the Migration tab. So there are 3 different things that you need to plan for. Again, migration is a really significant process because you have an on-premise Exchange environment. You need to decide what mailboxes that you need to coexist, which means which mailboxes do you keep on-premise, which mailboxes do you migrate to the cloud, and of course, if you decide to have a coexisted email solution, you need to consider directory synchronization. So you need to prepare the environment for synchronizing your AD accounts. You need to decide on what's the plan for synchronization. So it's a dedicated process that you need to spend some considerable time on. So the email coexistence, if you click on the configure option, you can see here Microsoft has provided a lot of links and help information for you. So you can see there is a plan for email coexistence. You can read all the things that you need to set up within your Exchange environment to set up coexistence. And once you do all of that, you can go ahead and synchronize your directory services. So you can enable directory synchronization, download and install a synchronization tool in your local AD environment, which is a tool that you would install on a machine that is connected to your local domain. And it should have read access at the minimum to your domain, so that it can read all the users and then synchronize it with your BPOS environment. So after you plan and complete your directory synchronization, you would also need to consider mailbox migration. So you have 2 tools here, a 32-bit tool, a 64-bit tool for mailbox migration. And if you have a POP3 or an IMAP4 environment, you can migrate mailboxes there as well. So that's really a quick overview of the administrator experience. So we have looked at the home page, we looked at the support process, we looked at how to set up users and slice and dice that view, and how to configure those different service settings. And we also looked at the migration process, which is the coexistence, directory synchronization, and the mailbox migration.